Welcome everyone to part 10 of What If Dale Survived the Remake. Last time, we got into Dale being at Woodbury and trying to negotiate getting Andrea back and showing Merle's dead body as a sign of what actually happened and that he was a complete and total honest man of his word and all he wanted was Andrea back. And now today, with Daryl having made a surprise visit, we're going to see how Andrea and Dale react to seeing Daryl and hold the governor at hostage point. Once Andrea and Dale do notice this, a few seconds after Daryl's arrival, they ask what Daryl's doing here and what's going on. Andrea mainly. Dale can kind of figure that out on his own, you know? But Daryl says that he's here, obviously, because this guy was responsible for sending his brother out and ultimately getting him killed. Dale knows this, but Andrea didn't. And Dale can concur with this, but he tells Daryl not to do anything rash at the moment, because he could still, or they can still figure something out. Nothing truly awful has happened besides that, so they can still work on something. Andrea is definitely shocked and kind of broken about this, thinking the governor to be an honest man of his word, and looks to him like, is this true? The governor asks Andrea if she's really willing to believe some redneck guy and an old man over someone who took her in along with Michonne and literally did nothing to them. It didn't hurt him, didn't kill him, didn't poison him. No. You're really going to believe these two over everyone here, including me? It's basically that kind of moment. And then he adds on to this, saying that Daryl, for all he knows, he could have gone crazy and perhaps just killed the brother himself and is just, a crazy guy, and the old man could just be covering for him. They don't know anything yet. They could just be on loops together with friggin' Michonne and, pretty much lying. Daryl doesn't take too kindly to this and points his crossbow straight at the governor, and he is just all seeing red right now. He is really about to put an arrow straight into the governor's temple for even suggesting that he would try and hurt or harm his brother. But the governor doesn't take this as a threat, raises his arm, and every single one of the governor's soldiers, including Martinez and the main ones, aim their guns square at Daryl mainly. A few aim their guns at Dale, but they see no threat in him. The governor didn't either, but hey, you can never be too cautious. Dale says for Daryl to put the crossbow down, and then turns his attention to the governor and says, they don't have to do anything here. All that's happened here is something small. A few of the men died. Yes, that's a little bit of bad luck, and Daryl's brother died, but they don't have to be this way. The governor says he's all willing to make a small truce, or even still maybe take them in. Let bygones be bygones. But he and his men are not putting their guns down until Daryl over there with the crossbow puts his weapons down, because he's the only one out of all three of them, besides Michonne, because they have no idea where she is, that seems like a threat. But Daryl, we all know that he's not going to be putting down his crossbow any kind of time soon, and he is just getting angrier and heated by the second, even with guns trained on him. So, the governor, seeing no kind of Daryl stopping at this moment, just basically is like, he shrugs his shoulder and is like, this is the way it's gonna be. But then a gun does ring out. A gunshot rings out, and it hits the ground straight next to the governor's feet. It was Andrea. She has had enough at this point. Hearing about Merle being killed and the governor sending him out after Michonne and everything like that, and the fact that Merle was going to kill Dale and Glenn, and now the governor willing to risk going to absolute war, even trying to think about shooting Dale. It's just become too much for her. And she wants to know exactly what's going on, because she feels there's way more to the governor than he's let on. And maybe Michonne was right in saying that this place is not what it seems. The governor says that he has absolutely nothing to hide, which we obviously know is a complete and total lie. And once again states to Andrea, why are you willing to risk believing a redneck, an old man, over someone who took you in? And he understands that she was part of that group before, but he thinks that they just got into her head and is about to lambast Andrea more, along with give some kind of order to shoot at Daryl, before Rick, Michonne, Sasha, Tyrese, and Oscar arrive on the scene with their guns drawn. And Rick demands to know what in the crap is going on after seeing that Dale, Andrea, and Daryl are all okay. He's just wanted to be sure of that before he did anything. Michonne and Dale, well, Michonne obviously came with Rick, but Michonne and Dale together, the two who has sensed the most out of the governor's ways, would tell about everything that happened that they weren't able to before. Dale would actually go more in depth from what Michonne and Glenn told Rick, because Dale did not go back to the prison, even though they're literally the stories connect. And the fact that Michonne, out of everybody, including now Andrea believing, knows that there's more to the governor in this town than meets the eye. And then Rick turns his attention squarely to the governor. And he's like, if you don't tell me and my people what is going on right now, there's going to be things happening in this town that you are not going to like. You want your town to stay standing? Then you better tell everybody, including myself, what's going on. And why you sent men to kill my people. The governor said that he knew nothing about what happened after he sent Merle, Tim, Crowley, and Gargiulio after Michonne. He at least admits that part. But it was to bring Michonne back, not hurt her. But we obviously know that's a lie too. And that Merle, he got himself killed. Daryl yells at this, saying, no, you got my brother killed. If you hadn't sent him out to get Michonne back, which he says kill Michonne because he isn't buying a word of what Michonne is selling, the governor is selling. He doesn't buy a word of it at all. And that if he hadn't sent him out, he would still be alive. The governor says that whatever he did after he sent him and out with the other men, that's his fault. He didn't order him to hunt their people. He ordered him to go after Michonne. And Merle, he's better off dead. And at this, Daryl's done. He has just lost it with the governor. And then, just angrily, with every fiber of his being, enjoys the shot of the arrow that he shoots into the governor's leg. Instantly, the governor cries out in pain and collapses to the ground, clutching his leg, trying to pull the arrow out, but he does not have the strength to. Because remember, the governor hasn't gone all crazy yet, so he's still weak, basically. And after this, and the gun ringing out was one thing, but it didn't shoot anybody in particular when Andrea shot. But Daryl shooting the crossbow arrow into the governor's leg, the governor's men are ready to just kill everyone who's appeared now. But Rick yells at all of them that to not make a move. Nothing has to happen here yet. They haven't got the information that they needed. This was just a warning shot at their leader. He'll accept that Daryl did this as a warning. But then he gets straight in the governor's face. And he's like, now you know that me and my people are dead serious. And he says he doesn't care about Merle. He doesn't care that they went after Michonne. All he cares about is what the governor is hiding and why he wants them to stay here so bad. And just some information, plot, condense, you know? But then Rick has a moment of clarity and says to Michonne, what information are you specifically looking for that would explain why the governor wanted you here so bad and why he acted the way that he did, especially towards Daryl, and why he treated Merle like crap? Like, what kind of person was he that you wanted to figure out what he was so bad? Michonne says she doesn't know. All she knows is the governor's ways just didn't seem right to her. And when she snuck into his house, which she admits to in front of the governor, by the way, she knew that something was in his room, but she didn't get the chance to go in. Rick then makes a decision. They're going to see what's in the governor's house. That has to be what he's hiding, or who he's hiding. Something to explain who he is and why everyone, including Dale now and even Andrea, are desperate to find it out. So Rick tells Daryl to stay with the governor as a prisoner, and they're going to find out what the governor's up to. The governor immediately tries to get up and stop them, knowing what they'll find in there. But Daryl just punches him square in the face, the hardest punch that we would see from Daryl at this time. This would be full of hatred. This would be an actually powerful punch, straight to the noggin. And this knocks the governor to the ground, and Daryl agrees to this, but he can't promise that he'll leave the governor. Well, he'll leave him alive to the best of his ability, but he can't promise he'll be, like, you know, in a position to talk afterwards. Basically meaning that he's going to literally punch him half to death if he tries anything, which he knows he will. They get to the governor's house, and what they find inside is not what they were expecting. They find the room with the tanks full of the heads, and this explains a lot, at least to a few people's standards. And then behind door number 2, Penny, the zombified daughter of the governor. And this doesn't explain a whole lot. The heads even explained more. But this inferred as to who he was. A madman. Crazy. And Rick's about to put her down when his mind flashes. It flashes back to the barn. Back to when Sophia came out of the barn as a walker. And Rick manned up, accepted what he did, and that he failed her, and shoots her. And then his mind flashes back. He realizes he can't do it. Sort of like I did in some scenarios with Rick and Lizzie, whenever she would get out of control, and it's like that, so to speak. So, Andrea does the deed for him, and puts Penny down. And, now that they've gotten this taken care of, Andrea, she just can't believe that this man who took her and Michonne in, Michonne was right, and she didn't listen. She wanted to believe that he was a good person. And that she was just unsure, that being on the road just made her, like, so, you know, unsure of everything. She wanted to believe it was that reason. But Dale tells her that it's not her fault. And Michonne, she admits to being sorry for the way that she treated Andrea, but she does admit that she was right. And Andrea full on actually accepts this. And, you know, Michonne's attitude and her way of speaking, she wouldn't get all sassy about it because she was right. She should have listened instead of turning her down. And whenever she mentioned about Dale possibly being alive, she wanted to go. But her mind just wouldn't let her. So everyone who went into the house goes to the streets of Woodbury, where people have lined up around the governor and Daryl. The ones who, apparently, at that point, everyone would be out in the streets. Let's be real here. And one of the tanks carrying one of or one or two or three of the heads, it really doesn't freaking matter, is thrown onto the street, busting the tank in the process, with the heads being left out in the open, and Penny's remains as a walker. After the governor sees this, he knew what was going to happen the minute that they went in there, but he just wanted to believe that it wasn't real. His daughter, in his eyes alive, is now dead. And he is so ready to just kill all of them and order his men to attack. But with how injured he is from Daryl beating him, as well as the arrow in the leg, because he still hasn't had the strength to remove it yet, he can't do anything. And he knows that in the situation, there's nothing he can do. Rick then turns to all the men of Woodbury, and all the soldiers, the people, everybody including his own group that are at the town at this time, and says that this is the kind of man that your leader has proclaimed to be. A faker, a crazy man, a loony. And unfortunately, they have to kill him. Otherwise, it's only going to get worse. And this is not the kind of leader that the people here deserve. They've made something of this town, and Rick applauds that. But this man, he can't be a leader here. And he wanted to believe that the governor was not bad, but he tried believing that before with several instances, and look where it got him. The governor has to die. And then he goes on to explain that this is what the world does to people. He tried believing it with a girl named Sophia, looking for her forever, didn't work, and she died. Tried believing it with his best friend Shane, but no, he tried to kill him, had to kill his best friend, and it didn't work. And then tried to make station at a prison from where they were at, and prisoners ended up being all bad. It got one of those good prisoners killed, and one of their best group members, T-Dog. True that two of the prisoners were the main baddies, but it still doesn't matter. What matters is that the governor is absolute proof that this is the way the world works now. People are just only ever out for themselves. But the town deserves a strong, alert leader. One who will actually make this town something of what it should be. Because he doesn't want to abandon the town. But the governor can't lead, and he must be stopped. Dale stops him almost immediately right before he's done with his speech, saying that they can't kill him. How are they any better than this dude or anyone that they've met before if they just kill him? It's like with Randall, and it's like with the prisoners. They can't lose their humanity because of one guy, or two, or three. They can't push themselves to be worse than the people that they encounter. Otherwise, they'll lose of everything of who they were. And he doesn't want that for anybody, including the governor. And let's be honest here. Let's be completely honest here. The governor, even if he was out of his mind and a little bit crazy, he wasn't actually, worse off than many of the people that they ran into. Like Shane and the prisoners. They were worse. They had done more at that point. So what they need to do is just, they can't kill him. There has to be a better way. Something that they can do that can make this right. He doesn't have to be in charge anymore. But they can't just end his life. After they kill him, there will be no going back. They've already killed when they didn't have to. Even if they called for it with the prisoners, they need to do what's right. They can't let themselves be inhumane, even if it is an inhumane world. And Dale admits that. But Rick, Michonne, and Daryl, their minds are almost made up completely. But Dale's words echo across the town, to everybody. And then, Rick in particular, has an idea. an idea that might actually work, and it's regarding the governor's room and the governor himself. An idea that could actually benefit and show that the governor is really crazy and deserves to be treated as such. But what is this idea that Rick has come up with? And what does it involve? Does it involve sparing the governor in a twisted, sensical way? Does it involve maybe just, killing him and keeping him as a walker somewhere? And will it matter, or will it make things worse? And that's where we leave things for the moment. Hope you guys like this longer addition to the Dale series so far, because we've still got a lot to impact, as I've been saying. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys in the next video.
You get yourself in some trouble, partner?